Hi there. You're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George,
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
and with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
Back for another week.
Back for another week. And Tom, you're agile, you're pivoting in a changing environment. Haven't got your usual office set up, and I can see that you're on the road today.
On the road, for legal reasons, I think I should specify. No, I'm in my house. I'm not going
On the
anywhere.
road
I
to
haven't
your
left
lounge
anywhere.
room is what
I
I was
am.
gonna
I
lead
am
into.
within 10 k's of where I live. In fact, I'm within 1k. I'm within 100 meters of where I live. Don't come to get me, Daddy Dandrews, please.
Quick point of fact, I'm using a Rode mic, so I am actually technically on the road. There you go.
Coming to you on a road.
Yes, on a road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch the announcements today? Daddy Dandrews says if we're very good little boys, we might be able to leave our place of residence and hang out with other vaccinated people in a series of weeks.
Yes.
Which is
Yeah.
exciting.
Very interesting.
Over, right? I think forecasting.
Yeah. There's a lot of forecasting. I was sort of a
things
bit
continue
confused.
on the trajectory that they're going with vaccinations at a certain percentage, whatever it is, 70% you'll be able to do XYZ, 80% you'll be able to do XYZ. But like these things are coming in a matter of weeks. I really kind of thought it was going to be in a sort of situation where like, oh, by December we'll be able to do XYZ. Like a lot of the dates they were talking about were late September, October in terms of
I think they were
introducing
looking at
additional freedoms.
the big one was 70% double dosed because there's the two different, because one shot of the vaccine does help, but 70% fully vaccinated is when, and he said this in the thing, it's like lockdown will end. And I think that forecast was like October 26.
Yeah.
So it was like that kind of point. I guess
The
could be
real
sooner,
question
could be
here is-
later, depending on what people's vaccine uptake is. I'm already thinking about moving my second appointment forward. Because I got AstraZeneca, so I was booked in for 12 weeks after my shot, and it'll be 6 weeks tomorrow, so the minimum that they're allowed to wait. So, I mean, that'd be handy, because, I don't know, I don't want to derail this too much, but I was getting so confused between, like, oh, okay, but if you reduce the time, doesn't that mean it's got a lower efficacy? And is it really worth us having a lower efficacy just to reopen sooner? Like, doesn't that not protect us as well? But then they break it. Articles I was reading were breaking it down between there's efficacy in terms of like stopping symptomatic, the idea that you've caught COVID and felt sick compared to you'll be hospitalized and maybe die. And they were like, oh, hospitalization and maybe dying, the efficacy is amazing, even if you don't do it,
regardless.
Even if you do it quickly rather than the long 12 weeks. But it's the whether or not you'll feel the sniffles and actually get sick is what the other one does. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, well, fuck it then. All right, as soon as possible.
Yeah,
I'm just going into this brain thing of like, oh, how can I do my second shot? And I'm just like, should I keep the lockdown beard? That's the real question.
Can I
go 4
beard?
more weeks with this beard?
That's the real question.
I was working on a lockdown beard, but you guys know me, I can't grow a beard properly, so it was more like weird, like magician goatee crossed with like catfish bum fluff,
Kind of a Fu
mustache
Manchu
going on.
situation.
A little bit, and then like silky smooth gap between that and my sideburns because nothing connects. And then the other night, my partner Alice was just like, "You thinking of shaving?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've just been so lazy. I don't want to do it." And she's just like, "You could do it like now." I was like, "Okay, all right, I can take the hint, and I really should be shaving."
2 things: silky smooth gap, name me your sex tape, and the thing that we really want to reiterate with all of that sort of stuff is, not to overcomplicate the vaccine thing. Go and get the vaccine. Get double dosed.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is much better. So the sooner the better of whatever vaccine is available to you. The other question I had for you, Tom, is because you are vaccinated with AstraZeneca and Adam and I are vaccinated with Pfizer, do you feel morally superior to us?
Well, because I thought you were both. No, because okay, I feel morally superior compared to other people. You two as individuals, I know, for example, George, you were ready and willing to get AstraZeneca, and then your dad's situation at the time, like, bumped you up to Pfizer eligibility. So I'm like, all right, no, you're on the same like moral high ground that I'm on, but then they just gave you a freebie.
Yeah,
Adam,
so
I
basically
remember-
what happened was
yeah.
I made the appointment, I turned up, and they said, like, do you meet any of these eligibility criteria? And I was like, well, at the time I had carer responsibilities for my dad, who was in, sort of late stages of cancer. He's since passed away, obviously. But so they were like, which one are you here to get? And I was like, I don't know, just fucking stick me with something. Like,
Yeah, just
whatever you
give
got.
me anything.
Just
Whilst I remember, Adam, I know you had concerns about other things like relating to maybe like health conditions and stuff like that. So yeah, I know you guys as individuals, I don't feel morally superior, but all the people who are like, wait for Pfizer. Like, I don't want to get a blood clot, even though I'm like totally not likely to get one.
Stop virtue signaling, God.
Virtue signaling's my middle name, Adam. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's true. It's actually Tom virtue signaling Heath. And he
legally changed it.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And the irony is he never stops telling everyone, which is a form of virtue signaling in itself.
And I could totally prove it by putting my birth certificate online, but I don't want to dox myself, so you'll just have to trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Fake news.
It's funny though, because like, I am not. I still think we're going to have issues after the end of October. We'll go out, we'll hit the pub real hard for like a week, and then it's going to be like, yeah, cool. So there's still 1.9. If you have 70%, I just worked out 70% of people.
70% of adults, so 16 plus
adults. So that means there's at least 1.9 million people, unvaccinated people in Victoria, not to mention the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hospital system's not going to go great.
It's not, and they've acknowledged that. And basically part of what they were saying is like, we're still going to have, Geelong and other local government areas are going into tighter lockdowns, like 7-day lockdowns as of today. Areas like local government areas where there have been cases, there still will be that sort of, case by case basis for individual government areas that they're going to sort of zoom in on in a way that they haven't before. Previously, it's been like Metro Melbourne and then like rest of Victoria. They're going to get more granular, I guess, with where they're targeting those restrictions. And it's like it's not like party fuckfest and anything goes fucking in the streets kind of thing. Like there will still be lockdowns. There's still going to be density limits and limits on people's homes, but you'll be able to visit people, be able to do things, you'll be able to go to the pub. Like lots of outdoor activities are going to be encouraged. Like it isn't going to be like, straight away life as per normal, but it'll be not sitting in your house playing tabletop simulator poker with your friends in VR, because that's the closest thing you get to social contact.
I like playing.
I've actually been
poker.
Yeah, I've been thoroughly enjoying our semi-regular tabletop simulator poker nights, George.
Don't get me wrong, I love it. It's just not the only thing I want on my plate. There's other things that need to happen.
And not
coincidentally, if you want to go fucking in the streets, that's probably one of the more like COVID safe things to do, because you're outdoors.
There's
lots of air being
as long as it's not more than 5 people from 2 different households.
Of course.
Like you still gotta go by those rules. But I know they said picnics, but really like any form of recreational activity, I assume, is on the cards, right?
I mean, you can put a rug down and you can. Anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about this.
It just changes what you're eating. That's really the main distinction between fuckfest outside and a picnic.
And the only thing you're not allowed to remove your mask for is alcohol. So I think, go for broke. But I was going to say, not to be too cynical just before, it was like, they say, there'll be lots of like, there'll still be maybe short, sharp 7-day lockdowns. I'm like, our short, sharp 7-day lockdown is still going.
Yeah, it started in June.
I think we've had one short, sharp lockdown that was short and sharp, and that was the one in February.
Yeah, lockdown 5 and 6 were really they're kind of the same.
I still argue we're in 5.2.
Yeah, we like to iterate our lockdowns here in Victoria.
Very agile.
Age of innovation.
Speaking
of
innovation,
we should probably, now that we're 10 minutes into the show, we are a show about newsy type stuff and things. And there's been a lot of movement this week, and a lot of heat generated, maybe not a lot of light. I think we should go to the breaking story, which is former
you already
Attorney
forgotten
General,
what it is?
former Attorney General, and now former what was the portfolio he had? It was like Environment Science Minister.
Industry and science.
Very recently former Industry and Science Minister, and now just backbencher and stony-faced villain Christian Porter has resigned from the front bench of the LNP. So, to give you guys a bit of background for those of you who are just joining us, first of all, deeply sorry for everything.
Everything you're about to hear.
Second of all, so Christian Porter he wasn't named. So Louise Milligan, reporter at the ABC, wrote an article about allegations of historical sexual abuse that had been levied at a government minister, which didn't name Christian Porter, but Christian Porter
later named himself
as the person that was suggested in that article. He then went to sue the ABC for defamation. They had a mediation process, which the ABC paid for, and then the action was dropped. So it wasn't that the ABC paid Christian Porter, it's just both parties
in a big swinging victory, Christian Porter gave up.
Yep.
That's basically what happened.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
And so, all of that happened. And this week, this was going to be the story for this week, but news stops for no man. Christian Porter revealed, as part of your standard sort of reporting requirements as a minister, that certain things about his circumstances had changed. And one of those things that had changed was that there was a blind trust that was set up for him, into which some unnamed member or person or organization donated around $1 million to cover the cost of his legal fees in this defamation fight against the ABC. So he said,
hiring QCs is actually really expensive.
Real expensive.
Sure is.
And I guess as some friendly party, we still don't know who it was, donated
know
money.
who it was.
Yeah, allegedly Christian Porter doesn't even know who it was.
Yeah, and that's what a justice's blind trust is. That's exactly what you want, is a situation where government ministers can unaccountably allow members of the public to just drop $1 million into their account for whatever purposes they might choose to use it for. That is exactly the kind of transparent, accountable government that I think we can all agree Australians everywhere think is perfectly great.
That's fantastic. It's like the ultimate GoFundMe.
It's GoFund yourself, mate. So this is problematic for a number of reasons. Oh, okay. And then now, today, as of this afternoon, we found out that Christian Porter has resigned from the front bench. So it turns out that conduct is very unbecoming and is absolutely unacceptable for a member of the front bench. For a member of the backbench, totally fine. But because he's still retaining his seat, he's still a minister of parliament. He's just no longer
not a minister of parliament. He's a member of parliament.
Member of parliament, whatever.
Yeah, and resigned from ministry.
So he's not on the front bench anymore. He's just a backbencher. Tom, why is this terrible?
Well, for a number of reasons, I suppose, because the anonymity of where the money came from and all that sort of stuff just leads to a lot of wild speculation. I mean, because it then sounds like, so someone has thrown their hat into the ring and financed Christian Porter's battle against the ABC. There's a lot of people who have sort of been very vocally against the ABC, just for a lot of reasons. So it seems like members
of his government, if I'm not
members of his government, members of competing media organizations, members the list goes on. But also, it's just got a
telling me that it might be a potential conflict of interest for an anonymous millionaire or billionaire of some description to donate to a legal fund of a particular party that's suing the national broadcaster. You're telling me that might be a potential conflict of interest?
maybe a bit of a conflict of interest.
I don't
Also,
see
yeah, no, I mean, fair enough. But also, it kind of has the weird precedence as well of like, oh, okay, so all right, some money changing hands in ways that make people raise eyebrows. Okay, I'll resign over that. Not the historical assault allegations or anything, to like maybe step down and let that have due process and blah blah. You know, how long did he hang on to being the highest law officer in the world, the country,
in the universe?
What do I care about anywhere else? Australia's the world. Yeah, like how long he was the Attorney General while trying to litigate this case. Well, he wasn't litigating it, but bringing it forward and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's like, oh no, all those conflicts of interest, all that concern, and maybe just, you know, whether or not that passes the pub test. No, keep his job then, but money's involved now, and, you know, let's boot him out.
Tom, you see, thankfully there's this rule book, right? It's called the Ministerial Standards, which was basically held up at the time when they developed it. As the sort of the golden, what's the thing from the Bible? The Ark of the Covenant. It's basically, you know,
the golden tablets. I think
golden tablets. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Was the Ark of the Covenant actually a thing in the Bible?
The Ark of the Covenant is the thing that the Ten Commandments
holds the Ten Commandments in.
Oh wow! I thought Indiana Jones made it up.
No,
I just thought it was some face melting box that they just came up with.
Oh, it is a face melting box, but it's referenced in the
amazing! Fuck, I should read the Bible, shouldn't I? That sounds wild.
Really
I thought it was all just boring, silly stories about, I don't know, Davids and Goliaths, and not like face melting like boxes.
People definitely
by a whale. It's like, you know,
they definitely they focus a lot on the begatting. So and so begat so and so who begat so and so, and not enough on the face melting. I think you're going to lose the audience.
Oh my god!
You want to keep the crowd interested. You got to throw them a bit of red meat or red face, as the case may be.
The ministerial standards.
Yes, tell us about the ministerial standards.
The ministerial standards, they were meant to be the thing of like, well, we're going to solve corruption because if someone breaches these ministerial standards, that's it, they're out. Of course, no one knows what's actually in those ministerial standards. Like, they're sort of held up as this high overarching thing. But of course, whenever someone does something, you're not able to go, oh yeah, well, obviously you're in breach of it. They have to refer it. So Prime Minister Scott Morrison stood up in Parliament the other day and was like, I'm going to refer it to my secretary, or not my secretary, the secretary of my department, who's also my former chief of staff, but we'll ignore that. And he will tell me if Christian has breached the ministerial standards.
Totally impartial. Great.
Totally impartial. Anyway, so obviously what's happened is
it's literally that scene in The Simpsons where they're like, we need to get the Prime Minister on this. Oi, Mr. Prime Minister. And it's just like Davo sitting out in a donut out in the back of the...
in the pool in his like tire ring or whatever.
Yeah, that's, you know, that was a satirical rendering of Australian government, which has actually borne out to be frighteningly accurate, as it turns out.
Anyway, so obviously today that advice has been subtly returned to Mr. Porter, I would say, through back channeling, and Mr. Porter's gotten out in front of it, I would suggest, and we'll probably find out tomorrow that he has in fact breached ministerial standards.
and that's the thing. This is clearly proof that the system works. I mean, because you'd be looking at that, right, to think that, oh, well, Scott Morrison's former chief of staff, so clearly they have a personal relationship, and maybe he'd just be more like, oh, no, it's fine, like, you know, mate's doing favors or whatever, or like, oh, can we really trust that someone who used to work for him is willing to stand up to him, or like to give him the bad news? Well, no, he gave him the bad news, and then Porter resigned. The system works, everybody. We can go home.
No, I don't think that's the lesson. Federal ICAC now, please. I just...
Oh, yes, that would be lovely.
Why are we relying on... Isn't it just... I don't know why none of the reporting around any of this doesn't just call it for what it is, which is corruption. Just like, at what point, how many examples do we need to see of blatant corruption before the ABC article headline is just like, Christian Porter is corrupt? Like... That's corruption. If you take money from an anonymous source in a way that doesn't meet the ministerial code of... what I'd love to hear is like a ministerial... You remember those ads from back in the day? Is like, don't copy video, don't pirate video tabs. If someone breaches the code of conduct, you can call no, it was not piracy. It was
It was just
television. If something,
television standards. Yeah,
something you see breaches the television
Media
code of conduct. Media code of conduct. Give us a call at 1300. Fucking get him. And why? Which that's what I want for an Australian government minister. It's just a Doberman helpline. If you notice that any of your government ministers are doing anything overtly, if something you've seen doesn't meet the current code of conduct, refer us a complaint on 1300. Eat my asshole. That's what I'd like to see. It's just it's blatant corruption. I don't know what else you could call it.
He obviously thought that because it's coming from a blind trust, that it would be okay to accept.
But hang on, but you set up the blind trust. A blind trust doesn't just apparate like fucking Harry Potter. Okay, you set up a blind trust for the express purpose of receiving unaccountable money from an unknown person and being able to claim plausible deniability, right?
Assuming that he didn't know about.
Okay, guys, I've set up a blind trust. It's called the Help George Get a Fucking Family Home Blind Trust. I hope someone deposits $1 million in there for completely unaccountable, non-corrupt reasons.
Wait, so hang on. Have I misunderstood this? I didn't think Christian Porter set up the blind trust.
But he accepted the $1 million.
He accepted the $1 million.
Okay.
Yes, he accepted the $1 million from. I didn't think he set anything like that up. The blind trust was also known as the Legal Services Trust. Yeah. According to this, if that, I don't know, seems above board. Legal Services Trust. They paid him money for legal service to contribute to his legal services.
Is that the?
I'd love to. Mountain out of a molehill.
I'd love to know, because I was under the assumption that the person would have to set up a blind. So it's what? Someone could just set up a trust for you, dump $1 million in there. That seems way worse.
Well, yeah, I assume I could set up a bank account
than I thought it was.
I assume I could set up a bank account, put money in it, and then go, oh, Adam, here's the details for that bank account and authorization to get money out of it. Go for broke. Yeah.
It's the same thing of if I set up it's the college trust, right? Where I set up a trust fund for my kid to go to college. It's like the kid doesn't have to sign off on it. It's just set up, and then they're labeled as the beneficiary. And to be able to withdraw that money, the beneficiary has to, fulfill whatever obligations are set up under the terms and conditions of that trust.
So I suppose in my earlier analogy of I could just set up a bank account, put money in it, and then say, Adam, go for broke. I could do that. But in this case, it would be more like if I did that, but then I also put a mustache on before I spoke to Adam.
Yeah, you got one of those little Groucho masks.
Hello,
mask.
Adam.
Groucho masks. Glasses.
I am from. And this money is from.
I'm Carlos Danger.
The question really is he telling the truth?
I am Guy Incognito.
I don't know who gave me that money. Is he being completely honest when he says, oh, I just was happy to accept it. I've no idea who gave it to me. No one would have, you're assuming that no one sent him any, he didn't have a conversation with someone. How did people know that he needed his legal fees paying? There are questions around that are very vague. So obviously, for whatever the finer details are, the granular details, I suspect we'll find out.
You know what though?
He has breached the ministerial standards.
I love the idea of just just Henry V-ing it just once more into the breach, dear friends, once more. I'm going to sue the national broadcaster, and then sort of turning out his pockets afterwards and going, oh, no way to pay for all this.
So full.
What? But it's just but why you did this? You did this to you. Why? But also, you could. You've been
a government minister, just shooting your knees. Blowing off your kneecap.
You've been earning good money for a long time. I'm sure you could afford to pay your lawyers if you wanted to.
You even gave him a discounted rate.
Yes,
you didn't charge a normal full QC rate. So that's obviously another thing. If you're hiring a QC, discounted rates still go into the millions of dollars.
You want your mates' rates, and it's still going to cost you $1 million fucking dollars. I don't.
At least.
He could have just paid it him. Why was the impulse? I don't understand. I don't understand these people. You're already doing very well for yourself. If you choose to sue the ABC, maybe be aware that comes with legal fees, and you should be the one to pay those. I don't know. I just don't.
Especially when at the time you are the Attorney General.
Yes.
The thing that gets me. He's meant to be the smartest law guy, and he's like
you are the big kahuna.
I guess he was just counting on the fact that, if he won the case, the ABC would have to pay his legal costs. And it's just kind of like, no win, no fee, kind of just gives Slater and Gordon a call and just be like, yeah, I done me knee at the bloody Parliament. Gotta sue the ABC. Have I got to work because work safe comp situation that I can claim
funny
on?
Though. If the whole thing was to be like, if I win, the ABC has to pay my legal fees, but you're also part of the government that's been cutting their budgets. These two ideas don't work together. You're giving them less money and then also being like, but you have to give me heaps of money to be like, fuck, we'd better fund the ABC just so they can pay out my legal fees. Hey,
just in the party room, hey guys, got a great idea. Could we give the ABC almost exactly $1 million for no particular reason?
Just an extra almost $1 million.
Just a quick cash injection, to the ABC for exactly $966,000, please and thank you, for no particular reason.
Yeah.
Good.
And the thing that astounds me about all of this is we all agree, it's pretty fucked up. It's corruption, crap. Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Can't be on the front bench. Totally fine for a backbench. Totally fine for a minister. Still a member of parliament, right?
Yeah.
Still representing his seat. And go that level of corruption. Totally fine for the people of fucking Wodonga. But if it's so...
He still gets to have his vote.
Yeah. Why is it not... Why is this not exclude you from being a member of parliament?
Because of the Constitution.
Boo.
Because the member of that relates back to the Constitution. There are probably other rules and stuff around.
Well, and also, don't they have a really tight majority as well? So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's that as well. It's almost like the Constitution needs updating, but
good luck with that.
It'd be pretty hard for the government, who has the slim majority, to do anything about it. That would be reprehensible.
Adam, I don't know what you mean. Constitutions are infallible. What planet were you born on?
The Constitution is the best.
Not a single amendment has ever been required to any constitutions ever.
I've never had any issues with any constitutions I've come across.
Once the amendment's in, you can't amend an amendment.
That goes against the very definition of an amendment.
So his seat is the seat of Pierce. So that corruption, obviously, totally.
Wait, so
fine
anything to do with Wodonga? Why'd you bring up Wodonga?
I don't know. I was just like, for example.
Fair enough.
These are. I don't know.
They're your government, George.
My government.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the government.
I'm just astounded by these people.
Hey, George, if you're astounded, right, by that, wait until you hear this next story, because your mind's just gonna melt.
You will shit.
You will. Literally like a 3-year-old trying to poop while standing up into his nappy. Do 3-year-olds still wear nappies? You can tell I'm not a parent. It's fine.
Depends on the 3-year-old, I guess.
So do you guys remember back in 2016, or even earlier, actually, the actual project was announced by the Labor. And then in 2016,
I don't know if the white paper was released under Kevin Rudd's government as a potential thing for we're talking about the submarines. The submarines.
And haven't the Libs been in power since 2013?
There was a defense white paper under Kevin Rudd's government, which was then the mantle was taken up and put into action under the LNP government of putting together a new set of diesel submarines to be contracted with France to build a new fleet of modern-ish submarines for the 21st century. For strategic Indo-Pacific regional player containment.
What does that even mean?
China.
All possibilities.
Just in case the Philippines gets really arky with us. Just in case Indonesia gets fucking
So
Yes.
there were originally three countries. I think there was Japan, there was France, and I think it might have been Germany or something. And
we were initially leaning towards Japan as being the people who build the submarines, and after a bit of back and forthing, it ended up being France who got the contract for the submarines.
We're like really upset at the time because we'd been like giving Japan the thumbs up, and then turned around and we're like, no, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What the submarine program has told me so far is Australia is a great, reliable partner to do business with. In that, we say we're going to do business with you, and then we just flip people the bird. We just go, fuck you. I know we had a contract that was several years in negotiating, but fuck you, suck my dick. Trust us, please.
Apparently, the French attitude, oh no, we want to have a nap, and then we're sitting over here in a different time zone, being like, no, but we can only call you when you want to have that. Like, we need you to, and that apparently just got really tiresome. So, let's throw out the rundown. Yeah.
Wait, was that actually an issue, or are you?
There are reports of like, the French wanted to take like leave over a month. They wanted to go on leave for a month, and we were like, well, what we need to sort out the thing that's costing us $90 billion. So can you not go on? Can you get like a temping or something? Like, can you do something else to not have your ridiculous amount of annual leave?
There's been growing...
French government just not function for a month?
It's not France. It's not the government though. This is the thing. We have a contract. We had a contract with a private company, a naval group, I think it's called. But I mean, the defense industrial complex, kind of the relationships between the government and the companies, with another example is the Australian Submarine Corporation and the government. Like, they're basically just arm's length organizations, which the government, gets to have their fun with. Obviously, yeah. And then the French government would get their taxes from that $90 billion sale. So for them, it's a big deal.
Both countries are, intimately involved in the discussions and the negotiations, even though it's with a private company. But yeah, there has been some chafing in recent months and years between the Australians and the French. The Australians not feeling as though they were getting what they paid for, cost blowouts, the original.
Not to mention the design was leaked. Like, the design of the submarine, the initial design of the submarine we were getting was put up on the internet.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that at the time. That it was like, oh great, cat's out of the bag.
So the whole highly secretive, top secret government project was like leaked before the project really even got underway.
Yeah, good.
So it's been plagued with problems, and there's a whole history on Australian submarine building.
Anyway, this week, what the Australian government did is they said, sucked in, we're going to break that contract with you, France, to get these submarines built, and we're actually going to get them built. Here, I guess the idea is to build them here in Australia, but we
don't know, George. There's no details. There's no fucking details.
So basically, there was an announcement, which is good. This government loves an announceable, and so they got up there and they announced ScoMo and Boris Johnson and Joe Biden all got together in a sort of three-way from hell, a real lemon party, and announced that they were going to put together the submarine program. Going to get some nuclear submarines. The US is going to gift us their technology, and that's nuclear powered, not nuclear armed. So it's just like, rather than diesel powered to make it run, it's nuclear powered, which means they can stay underwater for longer and think of Chernobyl. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
No.
I believe Adam Bant referred to them as floating Chernobyl.
Yeah, I know.
It was a little on the nose.
I was like, okay, mate. All right, Adam. Come on, mate. So nuclear-powered submarines, which are meant to be better, they can stay underwater almost like indefinitely, be powered for, long, long stretches of time. It's a superior model of submarine. But the thing is, like, the reason we were going with the diesel submarines was because, like, we asked the French to alter their nuclear submarine designs to diesel, I guess because we thought that it would be, like, politically unpalatable for us to have nuclear submarines, and they're just like, fuck it, throw out the rundown, we're doing nuclear.
Yeah.
It's almost
rather the very politically palatable situation of spending $90 billion on submarines that we haven't built.
Well, so
like that we don't have.
We've currently we've cancelled that contract with the French, is that suck eggs, and now we're doing this deal of some unknown quantity for approximately what was it? Eight submarines that we were going to get from them. At some point, could be
magic
about
number.
Could be at 2030s, 2040s that will actually receive these 8 submarines, and they're not all going to come at once. Like it's going to be a process. So now we've just said we're going to do this deal with the Americans and the Brits, and that's great. And the French weren't super pleased about that.
No, they were thrilled.
And we've already sunk $4 billion into this project. It's like $2.4 billion we've already sunk into it. It's probably going to cost us like another $2 billion to exit out of this contract. Like, it is a significant deal, and they gave no warning to the French. They learned about it from a press release.
The way we got asked about this, so you remember how ScoMo went over to the G7? So he had a side meeting with Biden and Boris Johnson, and they were like, bro, we hate China. Do you want some nuclear subs? And then ScoMo was like, with his little Australian, face mask on, was like, yep, let's do it. And then the next day or 2 days later, wherever it was, then met with Emmanuel Macron, where they discussed the submarine project and were like hugging and high-fiving and, oh yeah, we're so tight. And then didn't mention anything. They literally, it's literally a stab in the back.
Yeah, there was a meeting with, I think it was the defense minister or something, like 2.5 weeks ago, where they were like, great, everything's great with the French submarine program, which we love. It seems like there's been absolutely no warning whatsoever, no sort of diplomatic effort to sort of smooth things over. They've just gone, suck eggs. So the French have withdrawn their ambassador from Australia.
Always a great
sign for diplomatic relations.
You're doing everything great when the ambassador flees the country.
And there's rumors that this might imperil the free trade agreement that Australia is trying to negotiate with the EU of, I don't know if you know this, Tom, of which the French are a member of the EU, of the European Union. Apparently the French have a say.
And they're probably a big cheese of the EU as well.
Is a cheese because they're French? Is that what you're going for there?
That wasn't the intention, but after I said it, I was like, no, you know what? I stand by it because French cheese is great. But yeah, I imagine they're a pretty big voice in the European Union.
They're not a nothing voice. They're a not insignificant voice of the European Union. It's not good. They're in France. They refer to it as the contract of the century, which leads me to believe we were probably being taken for a bit of a ride.
Being screwed. They literally got the and this was again after the G7, I'm pretty sure, but they got the guy from Naval Group out here. They made him do his quarantine, and they had like a 2-day meeting with him just to discuss the project, which makes it sound like they were trying to work out whether or not to but I don't know whether they just said yes to it straight up, and then they were trying to work out, or whether they've been trying to work out for the last 4 months how bad it is and whether or not it's worth to pull the plug on it.
It literally feels like an episode of Utopia has happened behind the scenes where they're like, hey, so the guy from the minister's office comes by Rob Sitch's office, and he goes, hey, it's just a couple of things we want you to just cast your eye over, just get another opinion on, just need you to have a look at this thing. And he goes, oh, what is it this time? He goes, no, it's fine. It's technically infrastructure. It's just the infrastructure of war. And we just need you to have a look at this submarine program. Just let us know your thoughts. And then he comes back to him and he goes, yeah, it's fucked. It's a really fucked submarine program. It's going to cost us billions of dollars just to get out of this, and it's cooked. The whole program's cooked. It's beset by delays. It's going to be an expensive program, which may yield no strategic benefit, and it's going to drag on for decades. He's like, right. So what you're saying is you need another $5 billion to make it work. And he's like, no. The problem is the program is terrible and it needs to be scrapped. And they're like, ooh, I don't know if we can do that.
I don't know if we can do that.
I don't know if we could do. How about an extra $10 billion? I think I could probably swing that with the Prime Minister. And then this is what we've ended up with, is that they've just gone, actually, we've flushed $4 billion. What's $4 billion between friends? We just flushed $4 billion. Simon Birmingham, Minister for the LNP government, was being interviewed today on Insiders. And David Spears says to him, okay, but like, obviously we've wasted a huge chunk of money, and like, what's the story with that? And he goes like, oh, strategic capabilities, AI, fucking cruise missiles, it hasn't necessarily been wasted. Just like, he literally mentioned the same three things like 3 or 4 times during that interview. It was like AI, cruise missiles, I don't know, fucking, advanced sounding warfare nonsense. And then it was like, okay, but like some of that definitely has been wasted though, because we built a factory in France. He's like, oh yeah, well, like, what's a couple of billion between mates? It's all, it's no big deal. What they're chasing people for, what is it, a couple of, millions of dollars in JobKeeper money. That's like, no, that money absolutely has to be clawed back. There's no possible way. There's no moral reasoning for why you could let people just have a bit of money during the course of a pandemic when they were unemployed. No, that was money that was paid unjustly. Then the government needs to balance the books. We need to get that money back. But by the way, we just set $4 billion on fire and we're like, oopsie, we'll get it next time. Surely there should be some inquiry, some strategic review as to like how we got nearly a decade into a fucking submarine program, paid $4 billion and got 0 submarines. We paid $4 billion to not get submarines.
Probably the big thing is actually not so much, well, it's combined. So it's not just the money, it's the time. We've lost effectively 10 years. We've thrown the rundown out.
No submarines. So for the strategic conflict with China, like we'll get 8 submarines in maybe 20 years. It's like, but now we have nothing. Like now we have no submarines whatsoever.
And that means because of that, you then have to, and this is as Tom said before, with the nuclear aspect, it's politically unpalatable because we don't have a nuclear industry in Australia. So we have to not only get the sub design sorted out and figure out how we're going to, like, maintaining the existing subs we've got now, which is 6 Collins class submarines, which were fucked as well. That whole project was just as bad as this 20 years ago.
Right.
We have to maintain those ones now for an extra 10 years and what the top of their service life is meant to be. So we have to upgrade them. So we have to sink more money into the ones we've already got to get them up to a level where they're able to just run. And then we're going to have to pay up, and one article I've read is upwards of $100 billion to get these nuclear submarines in. That doesn't include the sunk costs of a nuclear industry in terms of maintaining, because we're not necessarily going to, you're not going to be shipping, nuclear fuel rods in and out like it's bloody lollies, but you still have to be able to maintain them, which means you need the personnel, the expertise, the facilities to be able to dry dock these things, to be able to keep them. How does Adelaide feel about having fucking a couple of fucking, as Adam Band said, potential floating nuclear Chernobyls just sitting on the front yard? Like, there's so much, and there's no detail about what the sub designs are going to be, about what deadlines there are. Biden said it's okay, and and Boris said it's okay, so we're just going to go with that.
Because it really sounds like with your...
We're making policy on the run.
As you talked about with the G7 meeting or whatever, that is very much like, all right, just Biden and Boris step aside to be like, hey, ScoMo, we're doing some submarines, you in? And he's like, are those boots I can lick? God, I'd love to lick me some of those US boots.
Yeah. So Scott Morrison, you guys remember Pulp Fiction where Ving Rhames and Bruce Willis are trapped in the sex dungeon in the pawn shop, and there's a
fantastically pent up in The Simpsons.
There's a gimp in a gimp suit. So I guess Bruce Willis is America, Ving Rhames is Boris Johnson, and Scott Morrison's the gimp. It's just like, there's 3 of us trapped here in the basement. You all need some boots licked. Let's get to it. It's just astounding. I just can't. I'm every day shocked afresh at the bald-faced incompetence of this government. Like there is, you can't. This is a massive, like, generational shift in, like, strategic alliances, partnerships, billions of dollars at stake. And it seems to have been, these decisions seem to have been made on nothing more comprehensive than a fucking pork chop at the G7. Like, it's
where was the competitive evaluation
where was the
process,
tender?
George?
Where was the fucking
tender?
I just need some fucking back of the envelope. Just act as though you were assessing other alternatives, just like
Was
a
there
grid.
a spreadsheet? Like, the best part about it is we know how strong the alliance is because Joe Biden knows ScoMo's name. Oh
Yes.
wait, no, he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. This whole thing has been worth it for just this brief moment of television.
Yeah.
Where in this announcement, Joe Biden said, and I agree with you, Adam. I remember when I told you about this instance, you thought it was a joke. And I first heard of it in just someone tweeting, like, quoting Biden. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look into this. And I watched the clip and I was like, oh, he said it. Where Joe Biden said that he wanted to thank Boris Johnson, like gesturing at the TV that Boris Johnson was on. And then he turned to the TV that Scott Morrison was on and said, and that fellow down under, thanks, Mr. Prime Minister.
We can.
And did you want to
say the?
Oh, you want to play it? You want to play how awkward it is?
It's the most awkward moment of my life.
I want to thank that fellow down under. Thank you very much, pal. Appreciate it, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm honored today to be joined by two of America's closest allies, Australia and the United Kingdom, to launch a new phase of the trilateral security cooperation among our countries. As Prime Minister Morrison and Prime Minister Johnson said, I want to thank you for this partnership, your vision as we...
Incredible. It made me feel... Like, I know I reference The Simpsons all the time, but it was the straight spot where you could pinpoint the moment that Scott Morrison's heart is ripped in half. Like, you just can see him on that tiny screen kind of doing the smile, maybe, like, you know, just sort of looking at it being like, yep, he's acknowledging me, Scott Morrison. And then it's just like, that fellow down under. And he's like...
it's just a walk into the sea moment. Like,
that is when you just walk away from the podium and just straight into the ocean, never to return. Oh my God, like amazing. I remember I posted something about that online and my mother replied saying like, I don't know if we should be laughing. And I'm like, it made Scotty sad. I'll laugh at that.
It's worth it.
Because I know deep inside that like destroyed him.
Oh yeah, it was literally a case. He's like, okay, Scotty, you're getting up there, you're talking with the President of the United States. This is your big moment. And then just like the soundtrack of this in his mind is just going to be, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you. It's like,
as well,
you got fucking rickrolled, buddy.
Oh man,
Scott Morrison was caught out in a radio interview in Australia a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Funny, that's exactly where I'd expect him to be doing a radio interview.
The morning radio host was like, "So, how are things with Biden?" Scott's like, yeah, they're great. They're a great partner. And he's like, well, have you spoken to him? He's like, nah, not yet. He goes, well, he's called these other guys straight up. He called them first.
Right, that's right.
When he got inaugurated. And he's like, he got really angry and just ended the interview.
When was this interview?
This might have been actually like months ago. I can't place it.
I was going to say, like, wait. Biden hadn't rung ScoMo yet? That would be amazing.
It was sometime
I love
after
seeing
the
Scotty
inauguration.
suffer.
But yeah, basically, you know, he's been ribbed before about how the US doesn't give a shit about us. And why would you? We have a new prime minister every 3 years. There's no fucking consistency. Like, I wouldn't remember the guy's name.
Playing musical chairs, I barely remember them.
It's just great.
Why are you the way that you are? You remember that line? Did you guys ever watch The Office? It was just like this time where he just breaks down in front of Toby. He's just like, why are you the way that you are? Every time I do something good, you make it not that way. Like, that's just how I feel about the government. It's just a pack of bumbling idiots. Just
the other thing as well, which we've only briefly mentioned at the start, is that the whole purpose of this and the way they announced it was basically just to get their dicks, to flop that on the table and be like, China, You like the size of this? It was just a dick measuring contest with China.
Yeah.
Which China have basically been like, why Cold War, bro? And I guess part of this is to put pressure on them over Taiwan, for instance. But if China's going to invade Taiwan, they're going to do that in the next 10 to 5 to 10 years, probably. It's going to be sometime within Xi's lifetime because that's part of his like thing. So by just pissing them off and going...
Yeah, pissing them off now on the prospect of having something that might be scary in 20 years. It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Yeah. Let me know how those 20 submarines that we get in, 8 submarines that we get in 20 years. Let me know how that stacks up against their 70 current submarines that they currently have. And the US response from this was like they're saying, oh yeah, we're saying there's no quid pro quo. We're not going to require anything from the Australians. It's just, I was like, are you guys fucking mad? Of course they're going to have troops here. They're going to have more people in Darwin. It's going to be a whole apparatus around, oh yeah, we'll just give you the crown jewel of our military technology which is these nuclear submarines. And we expect nothing in return. That you're just great blokes.
Absolutely nothing.
You're just a gorgeous girl. I just want to buy you a drink just because you seem wonderful. I certainly don't want
how I feel about that analogy.
That analogy is...
I'm saying they're being
sort of accurate.
Sleazy bastards, and they want to get into our pants. And by pants, I mean Northern Territory military bases.
Yeah.
Which, makes sense for them. But it's... Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why you want to encourage an arms race that's already out of control. Like, why would you want to add...
You know
like,
what
here's the fire. Let's just pour petrol
No,
over it.
Adam, you know what helps with an arms race? More arms. Because if we have the most arms, then the other side will just give up. And that's how
it's almost like
global conflicts
World War I,
have shaken out.
Like...
No. I think the problem with World War I is they didn't have enough arms.
Too many
if
arms.
they only had more arms, if they were Ganesh walking around with 8 arms, then you would have to worry about it. They just needed more arms to win the arms race, which
I like the Hindu
won't
reference.
which won't ever end up in a global
Hindu
conflict.
reference, for the record.
I just it's so I don't know, and so, like there seems to be this drumbeat, this inevitability towards war. It's like, oh yeah, well we're gonna have to go to war with China at some point, and I was like, are we? Are we gonna have to? And if we do, if we get conscripted, like I'm not the guy that you want fighting for Australia. It's just like I have no desire to die for Australian sovereignty at the feet of some Chinese. Yeah, it's just like it seems so. China is our major trading partner. They're everyone's major trading partner. They're the not even the rising superpower. They are the global economic military superpower now. What advantage does it do to us to burn $100 billion in trying to piss them off? Like it just seems like surely you just want to keep the dragon happy at this point. Like you just want to, you want to go to Smaug and you want to bring him lots of nice gold things and just make sure he's a real nice, happy guy. And that, it doesn't seem to me as though there's anything to be gained by pissing them off at this stage. I feel like we've really backed the wrong horse.
No. In all honesty, I think just the Viagra is not working anymore. And just this is what it takes.
This is the only way that
we can measure our dicks successfully.
Yeah. It's just the only way that any of these leaders can maintain a strong enough erection for a sex life is where I was going with that.
Yes. I don't containment seems sensible. Like I having read a couple books about the South China Sea, I think, it is reasonable to make. Oh, who is she?
Fancy boy. You've read books, have you?
Clearly, it makes sense to limit China's geographical expansionist, impulses in this moment, right? But you do so through diplomacy. You do so through rules-based order. You do so through trading partnerships like the TPP. Those are the sorts of things that you can do as a member of a sensible first world country to try and keep the blinders on. You don't piss people off and go it really seems like Wag the Dog almost, the film, where it's like it seems like we're starting some shit to win some domestic political squabble, or just like the LNP realizes their ass is, being hung out to dry over the coronavirus and all these other sort of domestic political issues. And they're like, how good is war though? Have you guys tried war? We should really go to war. Like,
well, yeah, and
what?
I guess a lot of the discourse I saw over the past few days regarding this was Scott Morrison saying, "Look over here, submarines.
Yeah,
Don't
legit.
look at Christian Porter accepting $1 million."
Yep. Yeah,
The announceable was timed pretty well for them in that regard, wasn't it?
I'm just, it seems terrifying that there is this, I think Peter Harcher, the journalist on Insiders this morning, said something about the inevitable war with China. I was like, no, you're manufacturing consent right now. Like, there is not an inevitable war with China coming. And if we all buy into that rhetoric and that hypothesis, guess what happens? There's a war with China. And guess what? If we start a war with China, we won't fucking win it. So, what are we doing here, guys? Like, and of course, Labour just backed the plan. They're just like,
they did.
Because of course they did. What's the point, honestly? What's the point of having an opposition if they just, they're like, there better be no nuclear weapons on those nuclear subs. And they're like, yeah, we never said there were. And they're like, great, we got some concessions out of them. Nailed them to the wall.
We pressured them real hard about those nuclear weapons.
We're just in the worst. This is just the worst.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it's always just been the worst and now we're just old enough to have to be paying attention and realizing it, or if this is new, but no, it seems like it's always been the worst.
I mean, there've been dark times in the past and things have come good. I'll put my optimism hat back on again.
Have they? When have they come good?
We used to have a terrible relationship with Indonesia, and now it's actually going okay. Actually, Indonesia weren't too happy about the subs either, to be fair. But
guess again.
Up until last week, it was going pretty good. So I don't know. It feels like if you've got a bunch of people who think like 20th century politicians, you're only going to have 20th century policy answers to international problems.
Yeah, this is what it feels like. It feels like the same guys who put together the Bay of Pigs and the same guys, in the 60s, are the same guys that are putting together the national security policy now. They're just like, we'll just get in there. Quick war's a good war. Just get in there, fuck shit up. And, we'll be greeted as liberators. Like, the guys who have just been, like, consistently wrong about every fucking foreign policy decision for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years are still the same fucking guys that we're turning to with the new conflict or potential brewing conflict with China. It's just like, why? Like, we've just drawn down all of our forces in Afghanistan, us and the Americans, off a spectacular failure of that mindset, that breed of foreign policy thinking. The single biggest failure ever in foreign policy in our generation. And then those same people are turning to us and going, there's a new war on the horizon. You better trust us. It's like, how you could not have been more wrong about everything your entire career.
Meanwhile, you've got BAE Systems and Lockheed Martin just sitting there going, hey boys, how you doing? You guys want a new contract? Let's have a new contract.
Those are some nice nuclear submarines you have there.
There was a great quote that I heard from John Maynard Keynes just recently, the economist. It was something to the effect of, if we can do it, we can afford it. Like, if we have the production capability to do a thing, then we can afford to do that thing, is the sort of central thesis. Basically saying, like, there's enough money to do whatever it is we want to do. You just got to have the right priorities. And it's clear to me that we just prioritize dumb tribal
stuff in Australia. We're bad at building stuff.
We're not good at it. But we prioritize conflict over like funding hospitals and funding education and like doing things which we, just building infrastructure, things that we know will demonstrably improve our lives are not a priority for this government. And they never will be. Not to mention
the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's like, are they spending money on extra hospital facilities for the inevitable surge in cases? Have they done anything about? Well, they've done very little towards a dedicated quarantine system.
For everything I want, oh no, we can't spend more money. That'll cause inflation. That'll cause inflation if we spend money on that. because I don't want to spend money on that. I don't give a fuck about your priorities. Educate. I don't give a fuck about the cost of arts degrees. I don't give a fuck about you or any of the things you care for. You can live on dust, you fucking pleb. But there's always money in the banana stand for fucking military industrial complex, $100 billion in submarines. That's not going to raise inflation. That'll be fine. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
All right, we've got those fighter planes that are working out.
Oh, don't even get me started on the fucking jets. Don't even legitimately do not get me fucking started on the jet program.
All right, winding back.
I don't know. Does it this week felt like a particularly hopeless week? I don't know. What do you guys? Did you feel the same way, or am I just crazy? Like,
no, I've felt like that a bit. I guess like the hopelessness, just pandemic wise, just really hit me this week, which is why today's circling all the way back to the start of the show of a roadmap out of here was kind of interesting because it's like, oh, we've had our highest case numbers the other day since when it was the absolute worst and we went into turbo lockdown last year. Yet they're saying, oh, but in like maybe the end of October, we'll reopen up. I'm like, huh? Wait, I'm confused. Like, yeah, that just made me feel really, really sort of hopeless. But yeah, all the other like just constant ineptitudes and all that sort of stuff. I guess maybe I'd resign myself to, oh yeah, no matter like there's no bottom to this barrel. This barrel goes forever, and they're gonna win the next election because there's not like the opposition hasn't even found their way into the barrel yet. Like while they're plummeting down into the abyss, they're kind of still lost on Apple Maps from 2012 and have driven into the ocean somewhere and don't know what they're doing.
Don't get me wrong. I really do think that Labour would be more competent, more capable of like running the government and doing a good job and aligning more with the things that I think are important.
I'm sure the country wouldn't implode, but
we'd be less on the brink of collapse. But I have no confidence in their ability to be able to win an election in order to get us there. And the fact is, like with climate change, with all these other things, like time's already run out for us to have started doing anything about any of these issues.
Yep.
And it's clear that this government is more interested in starting a war that they can't win than actually facing any of the issues. Like, if we can afford $100 billion, like, think what $100 billion for climate change would do. That would transform our country. It would transform the economy. It would set an example to the rest of the world. $100 billion for 8 submarines, or $100 billion for a climate future fund to investigate renewables, to, I don't know, do some carbon capture, to implement. Everyone gets a free solar panel on their
hydrogen,
roof.
George. They could do the hydrogen.
No, not things that are disguised to help industry that, that happen to be fossil fuel extraction, who are also their mates who donate to their political parties.
I was going to say, George, but their donors will go out of business.
Yes, yeah, not a Liberal Party donor relief fund, otherwise known as the gas-fired recovery. Like, think what $100 billion sunk into renewable energy and renewable energy adoption. Every household gets a subsidized electric car, or like you could do so much with that fucking money, but instead we want 8 submarines that'll be out of date before we get them in 20 years.
Yeah,
like those are the priorities.
But we get to taste some sweet boots that Joe Biden is wearing. I think you're underestimating just how hard that gets them.
On that note,
you know what doesn't cost $100 billion?
What's that?
For ScoMo to fly down here and eat my ass.
There it is. Not a funny note to end. There was a joke in there. I know it was about 45 minutes of me ranting, but I just it has to get better, right? Like, surely it can't just keep being like this all the time forever. Like, at some point it has to get better than this.
Yeah.
We might not live to see it, but at some point.
One day. It's all right. We've got Netflix in the meantime, so all good.
We do.
Yeah, literally watching Netflix while Rome burns. On that note, we have been, we are, and we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our Salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have to or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. It's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and motherfucking YouTube. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
And you can follow us all down to the ambassador's residence, where we'll say, how do you say I'm sorry in French? Je suis désolé.
He's not there, so
No.
I guess we could.
Because he left
No,
in a half.
We could probably use the
fall
pool
on-
or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it'll fall on deaf ears. Can we raid that wine cellar? I imagine there's a good wine cellar in the
I
French
reckon
embassy.
they've got a bunch of fucking excellent Bordeaux's in there that's go down a treat. So
Yeah, that'll be
Cheese,
nice.
Some cheese as well.
Mm.
I want cheese. I'm gonna get some cheese now.
yeah, you must be kidding me. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.